disagree. I think there's a point.
I know you disagree. I'm just telling you. I'm just telling you.
When it comes to Republicans, when it comes to conservatives,
I know. Hang on.
They have to see.
I've let you have your say.
I think I'm a mirror.
I've let you have your
what
say.
They have shown.
I'll let you have your say.
And if they don't like what they see, then they should actually detour from their wicked path.
I'm using your own justification to tell you what I think of you and what you've done. All right? That's my free speech at work. Let me bring in Jillian Michaels.
Agree.
I mean, Jillian, look. I saw Brian there nodding to some of what he was hearing there, not all, to be clear, but nodding to some of it about the hypocrisy which Lucas claims he is exposing with this stuff. What is your view of what he's said?
When this clip starts, the first thing I notice is that the amazing Lucas doesn't just show up to debate. He shows up to give Charlie Kirk, Piers Morgan, and the entire panel a direct dose of the very same tactics Charlie Kirk used for years, especially in the aftermath of George Floyd's death. And watching it unfold, you can literally see the discomfort set in. The meltdown begins almost immediately, and the hypocrisy from the panel starts shining through with every reaction shot. I want you to pay attention to that dynamic because it matters. The exact style of mockery, dismissal, and dark humor that the right deployed for years is suddenly unbearable when reflected back at them. And that contrast is the entire point of why this clip is so explosive. Now, just so you know, there is an ad in the middle of the clip. When it pops up, I'll skip straight through it and bring you right back to the discussion. And then, once we've seen the full exchange play out, I'll come in and break it down with my thoughts at the end.
Titled Charlie Kirk versus Bullet. Can one bullet to the neck outsmart one conservative? Well, that was a short watch. Number 2 is a mocked up promotion poster called Kirk and Twerk at Neck of the Woods and hashtagged both Charlie Kirk and his widow. And the third was an image of a sunrise titled God Works in Mysterious Ways with the hashtag Charlie Kirk killing and praying hands as an emoji. And you're laughing as I show these. Why do you find this funny?
Well, let me just say that I actually am a big advocate for dark humor. And I happen to have gotten a bit of a taste of that over the last, I don't know, maybe decade or so when it came to the right and their memes of George Floyd. Happy birthday being sober for 5 years. When they came to their memes of Breonna Taylor, when it came to their memes of Trayvon Martin, the Trayvon challenge, right? When it came to their memes of Tamir Rice. So I don't know what the issue is. I think I'm engaging in the freedom of speech that the right has been advocating for these last 10 years and mocking and making light of Black death, something that Charlie Kirk himself did time and time again. As a matter of fact, I would argue that if Charlie Kirk, instead of focusing his time on Black culture and Black on Black crime, if he had spent a modicum of his time focusing on the white youth, that perhaps he would still be with us today.
Are you pleased he's dead?
No, absolutely not.
So how did you feel about his murder?
I don't think.
How did you feel about his murder?
How do I feel about his murder?
Yeah.
Well, I think a quote by a great author sums up the sentiment of millions of Americans around the world. And that is, some cause happiness wherever they go, others when they go. And I think that's a sentiment that is palpable amongst many Americans around the world due to the hate and vitriol and bile that Charlie Kirk sowed. So I think there was a pastor
just to be clear, unless I misheard you, then you are happy he died.
No, I don't think as far as happiness is an emotion that
you literally just read me a quote which implies you're happy. You talked about some people's death bring happiness.
The purpose of the quote was to say that there are some people who have caused harm and death and turmoil to other groups of people, such as Charlie Kirk, whether it's Black people, whether it's, trans people.
No, I heard the quote. But just to be clear, you said that the quote ends in that their death brings happiness, but you've denied that you were happy. But when you tell me a quote,
I don't disagree.
When you tell me a quote like that, I presume from that quote you're implying that actually you are happy he died because he deserved it. He had it coming.
No, not at all. I don't think those are ever words that I've ever mentioned verbatim ever. I think there is a sentiment that when someone who lives their life in evil and wickedness, according to the scripture, the power of life and death is in your tongue. And the hate and the vile and the venom that he spewed, I don't know what to tell you. As the scripture says, as he professed, you live by the sword, you die by the sword. I think his focus should have been on a community that, clearly is in problem. That I find it interesting that there's more scrutiny on people who may make memes that they've done of George Floyd and other black victims than on the white male youth that did this tragedy, as some would call it.
Why would you be offended about the memes to people like George Floyd, which I found contemptible at the time, if they're the same ones that you're talking about? Why would you profess to be offended by those if you're quite happy to do the same kind of thing yourself?
I think the point that I'm making by the means that I'm putting out, which clearly has caused outrage and triggering, I find it a bit hypocritical that the people for years who said fuck your feelings are now overwhelmed with feelings at the moment. But the point that I was making was to point out the hypocrisy that the right has on a variety and myriad of issues, as we just saw with Pam Bondi on the freedom of speech. I think the issue is that they have scapegoated people like Pam Bondi for what is the crime of Donald Trump. The same thing they did with Anthony Fauci. We saw this when it came to the Second Amendment. They banned bump stock ban. They had a bump stock ban under Donald Trump while they were fear-mongering about Biden take away your guns. But as we saw, there was no outrage, there was no protest, and we come to find out that it was unconstitutional. So I think this hypocrisy is ubiquitous within the right, and I think my memes expose that hypocrisy.
And what about your own personal humanity? I mean, hashtagging his widow in a mocked-up promotion poster of Kirk and Twerk at Neck of the Woods. How do you justify targeting... hang on. How do you justify targeting his widow?
I think that's a bit disingenuous to use such hyperbolic language as targeting. I think it's more of a strategic plan of attack to get the message out to more people. When we saw Erica Kirk, she had a moment to speak for unity within the country, left and right, and she chose to fundraise. She then chose to use the scripture and talk, very nicely of her, past husband. And I understand that. But by that same token, there are people who were absolutely harmed by the rhetoric that Charlie Kirk put out. And that rhetoric actually codified in many cases in many states. So I think it's abhorrent and actually perverse to expect people who are harmed by his rhetoric, harmed by someone who had anti-black, anyone who wasn't white and Christian in his perspective. I think it's perverse to try and criticize those people or try and make them seem as if they're the bad guys when that's
but you see, funny enough, I can look at what you've done and I can see somebody who is abhorrent and despicable and actually evil. Actually, the stuff when you target someone's widow as she grieves and tries to protect her two children.
Targeting.
I'm talking about me. I'm talking about me personally. My view of what you've done. I don't care about your motivation in terms of other people's inappropriate memes, many of which I may well agree with you about. But that doesn't mean that I then go and do it myself or worse, because that makes me even more inhuman and abhorrent, and by your definition,
I disagree. I think
evil. I know you disagree. I'm just telling you. When it comes to Republicans, when it comes to conservatives, I know. Hang on.
They have to see.
I've let you have your say.
I think I'm a mirror.
I've let you have your say.
What they have shown.
I'll let you have your say.
If they don't like what they see, then they should actually detour.
I'm using your own justification to tell you what I think of you and what you've done. All right? That's my free speech at work. Let me bring in Jillian Michaels.
Agree.
I mean, Jillian, look, I saw Brian there nodding to some of what he was hearing there, not all, to be clear, but nodding to some of it about the hypocrisy which Lucas claims he is exposing with this stuff. What is your view of what he's said?
I find this exceptionally sad because, Lucas, you talk about how hurt you were and how offended you were by such despicable things, and then you became the thing that you found the most repulsive, which is alarming, and as I mentioned, deeply saddening. I would be more than happy to litigate some of Charlie's positions for you. I abjectly...
I don't think I need any litigation from a woman who tried to downplay slavery, who tried to all lives matter slavery after she purchased a black child. That's what I would argue. I don't think you need to as far as litigate anything.
Would you like to discuss it?
Okay.
Because the reality of the situation is that what I gave you, whether you like it or not, is a fact from the 1860 census. And the point is not to downplay slavery.
It is actually a bastardization of actual history. What you cited was inaccurate. You can actually look it up. I don't know if you did. I doubt you do your due diligence. You clearly did not, because in that study that you're citing, in the study that I'm discussing it right now, in the study that you're citing, it takes into account not only the slaves, it takes into account the northern states and the southern states. So to try and implement or to say this all lives matter when it comes to slavery, which is abhorrent and in extreme contradiction to American history, especially in this country as chattel slavery as Black Americans, is abhorrent and perverse, especially you, who is the mother of a Black child, who she purchased.
Right.
Other people
Is my
adopt.
turn to talk?
You purchased.
Is it?
By all means.
How did I? Okay, well, I'm not quite sure what you mean by purchase. She's adopted, and it is illegal to purchase a child.
Did you pay to get that child?
No, I paid the adoption agency.
It was
fees
absolutely
to do my
free.
home study.
It was absolutely okay.
I paid the adoption agency like you
so then there was
pay
a
to
process
adopt
of
a
payment.
child.
I
To
believe
an
that other
American
people adopt.
adoption agency. Okay, you're wrong, and that's defamation.
I'm literally
it's
right
an
as you're
absolute
saying
lie,
that
and
you
it's-
paid to an adoption agency.
You're literally wrong, and it's this
I'm
kind
literally
of hateful,
correct.
You know what you are? You know what you are,
I
Lucas?
think what's hateful is you downplaying
Hang on, let me
slavery.
jump in
That's
here.
what I think is
Let me
hateful.
jump in
I
here,
didn't actually
Lucas.
downplay
Let me jump in
slavery.
here, Lucas.
That's
it seems to
literally
me
what you did.
Seems to me, Lucas, you've decided to be just as offensive as you want to be. You're now attacking people who adopt children, which is one of the most selfless things that any human being could do, actually.
This is literally what
But
the
you-
right did to Dave Rubin, is
Fine,
it not?
Fine, but what you're doing is just trying to be as offensive as possible whilst masquerading under this umbrella of, well, everybody else is offensive, so that's why I'm doing it, to expose
Not
all
at
the
all, and I
hypocrisy.
think if that's
But
what I'm
Gillian
giving
is
off, I
right.
apologize
Gillian is
sincerely.
right.
What
that
I'm
actually
merely trying to
you
do
have descended.
is create
you
a
have,
better
the
world.
way you've
What
just
I'm
gone
trying to
after
do is to
Gillian.
unify
You know what,
people.
Lucas?
The
Stop
only way
talking.
we can unify people
Stop
is for
talking.
people to understand the
Stop
harms that they've
talking.
done.
You have targeted Gillian for adopting a child. That is despicable. Let me bring in Riley
I
Gaines.
targeted Jillian for adopting a Black child after she downplayed slavery, which
Right.
I think is contradictory.
You
Actually,
attacked her for adopting a
adopted
child.
I mean, let's not
14 years
misconstrue
ago.
my words that I'm
So-
saying.
Oh, I heard your words. Let me
Yeah,
bring in.
I
Let me
did
bring
too,
in.
Lucas.
Let me bring in Riley.
You're
Riley.
misinterpreting
Let me
that.
bring in Riley Gaines here.
Sure, buddy.
Riley, you've been waiting patiently.
So let me break this down the way I'm seeing it, because honestly, I don't need to drown you in details for the point to be clear. What the amazing Lucas did in this clip wasn't random, it wasn't emotional, and it definitely wasn't accidental. He mirrored the exact behavior the right has normalized for years, and the irony is that the moment that mirror gets held up, suddenly the outrage is deafening, and that's what stood out to me immediately. Lucas didn't invent a new tactic. He simply reflected the same dark humor, the same callousness, the same flippancy toward Black Death that Charlie Kirk and so many conservatives treated as entertainment for years. The only difference is, this time, the punchline was aimed back at them. And watching the panel unravel, watching Piers Morgan scramble to look morally superior, that's the part that exposes the double standard in perfect clarity. Because here's the truth. Nobody on that panel actually challenged the substance of what Lucas said. Not one. They didn't debunk anything. They didn't correct anything. They didn't point out a factual inaccuracy. The only thing they attacked was the tone. And whenever someone focuses on tone instead of truth, that's usually the first sign they don't have a counter-argument. Piers Morgan, especially, made that painfully obvious. He didn't dispute Lucas's claims about Charlie Kirk's long record of mocking George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, and countless Black victims. He didn't push back on the examples. He didn't try to fact-check any of it. He just shifted into that familiar turn-the-other-cheek routine, the same routine conservatives weaponize only when they're suddenly uncomfortable. But let's be honest with ourselves, if Piers truly believed the moral high ground mattered, he wouldn't be platforming people to sanitize Charlie Kirk's legacy in the first place. Because the reality is simple. The only reason Lucas responded the way he did is because Charlie Kirk spent years normalizing cruelty. He treated tragedy like content. And nobody on that panel said a word back then. It's only now, when the consequences land on their own doorstep, that they suddenly rediscover empathy. And Jillian Michaels, trying to step into the conversation, was another moment that spoke volumes. Lucas pointed out the contradiction in her commentary. You can't downplay slavery, adopt a Black child, and then expect people to ignore the inconsistency. That discomfort she felt? That's the discomfort Black people have been told to swallow quietly for generations. And the broader lesson here is unavoidable. The right has been allowed to punch down with no accountability for so long that the moment someone pushes back, they call it cruelty. They call it hatred. They call it divisive. But when they engage in those same tactics, it's framed as humor, free speech, or just a meme. What Lucas did was expose that double standard in the clearest way possible. And honestly, a lot of people needed to see that. Because the when they go low, we go high approach has been interpreted by conservatives as weakness. They take it as permission. And we're watching that dynamic play out in real time. from the government shutdown negotiations to the way Democrats are constantly portrayed as soft for choosing decency. But here's my take. Accountability can't be one-sided. If the right wants to dish out mockery, then they should be able to handle it when it comes back their direction. If they want to normalize cruelty, they don't get to cry victim when the mirror reflects their own behavior. And in this situation, that's exactly what happened. Charlie Kirk spent years making jokes about George Floyd, jokes that followed Floyd's family through anniversaries, protests, and pain. So am I supposed to be shocked that someone finally treated him the way he treated others? No. What you put into the world eventually boomerangs back. That's not cruelty. That's consequence. So as we continue through clips like this, let me know what you think. Because conversations like these matter. And whether you agree with Lucas or not, it's impossible to deny that he exposed an imbalance that's been ignored for far too long. I appreciate you for watching, and I'll see you in the next clip.